Hey guys, Chris here from the Patch Universe. So today I wanted to make a video actually to make a review on a poetry book trilogy that I started reading a few months ago. And this trilogy is called the Staying Alive trilogy. So, as I say, I have the three books. The first one is called the Staying Alive, Real Poems for Unreal Times. The second one is called Being Alive, the sequel to Staying Alive. And the third one is called Being Human, the companion anthology to Staying Alive and Being Alive. So, what I find interesting in those books is actually, as I say, it's a collection of poetry from different writers, and most of the time they are English speaking writers or writers who wrote poems in English, or actually translations. So, you have poems from people from Czech Republic, from the Netherlands, for a lot of countries, and they are translated into English. And actually, it's an important part of my journey as a poet because I started writing poetry a long time ago when I was actually 15 years old or something like that. And I'm now, since yesterday, I'm 32 years old, and it was my birthday yesterday. I don't know if you care about that, but I care about that, so I want to say it. And actually, a few years ago, I bought that book called The Essential Poem from the Staying Alive trilogy because I went to, when I moved to the Netherlands, it was 2 years ago now, I'm back in Belgium. When I moved there like 2.5 years ago, I really wanted to focus a lot more on writing poetry. And I went to this store called the Waterstones, which is a really important English bookstores. And I spoke to the guy there, and I said that I wanted to actually discover more poems. And at the beginning, I was really stuck into that idea of lyrical poetry, like poetry with rhymes and stuff. Like when you talk to somebody who doesn't know much about poems, and you say, "Yeah, I like poems," he's gonna think about rhymes. That's the first thing the person is gonna think about. So that was really my idea about poetry, and that was the way I wanted to write poems. So I bought that book, and I discovered, I learned some poems. For example, here Harlem from Langston Hughes, who became like my favorite poet of all time, and especially that poem. And I made a review on that poem, and I spoke about Langston Hughes in a video actually a year ago. But if you are really interested in poetry, let's be honest about it, I would not recommend buying that book. I would recommend buying that book if you want to make somebody interested in poetry, or if you want to discover more poems and you're kind of careful about it. But while I really like that book, when I bought those ones, the real ones, I discovered a lot of poems that were not in the essential poems and that I really loved. That became some of my favorite poems of all time. For example, I don't know if you remember, but something like 2 months ago, I made a video on the poem Apologia from Connie Bensley, where she explains or she finds her life really boring and stuff like that. And I made a whole video on that because I found that a really interesting poem. So I'm not gonna lie, just once ago, because I'm drinking my coffee at the same time. Very nice. It's a latte, like very nice cup, by the way. I like it because I bought that in Leuven, which is a university town in Belgium, and I don't know if you care about that, but that's my video, so I say it, and it's very nice. And I'm trying to reproduce the magic of cafes here, like you drinking coffee. For me, it's like a latte with caramel, and you're reading poetry, or you're reading something else, and you're writing at the same time. Anyway, so just to go back to the subject at hand. So I haven't read all of the poems, it's quite a lot. But what is really interesting in these books is, you have different sections. For example, you have the first section called Body and Soul. And so you have and then you have an explanation, and people explain, saying what their point of view on those poems are. And you have the first poem is called Living, which is a poem I really like, very simple, but I really like it. Anyway, you've got many poems, and you have other sections, like, for example, let's find let's find the name of the second section. You have Roads. Yeah, that sounds like a weird name, but actually you can you can convey a lot of ideas with this, concept of road, because you have, for example, the very well-known poem from Robert Frost. You know, there was with the two roads, and the road not taken. That's the name of the poem. Anyway, if you're interested in poetry, I'm not gonna take too long talking about those. I think you should really consider buying those books. They are really amazing. It really opened my mind on what poetry is all about. And now I'm not stuck anymore on this idea that poetry should be with rhymes. It should be that way. I discovered a lot of new ways of writing poems, and I think it's really incredible. And the last thing I wanted to end this video on is that for me, and I spoke about that in other videos, just a bit of coffee. I'm getting good at it, I'm just a bit too enthusiastic. I spilled some coffee. Anyway, I spoke about that in some other videos I made in the past, is that for me, like a good poem, and a lot of other art form as well, like painting or things like that, they're like windows showing, different emotions that you felt in the past, or things that happened and stuff like that. And that's what I'm trying to do when I write poetry myself. I try to create windows, and then when later on, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years, maybe in 300 years, when somebody's going to read my poems, he's going to look at a window showing the landscape of the past, and like something that happened in the past, or an emotion that I felt anyway. And when I'm reading actually the poems in those books, I really see that. I really see the windows, and I can really look at the landscape, and I think it's an amazing feeling. Anyway, so I think you understand that I really like those books, and I think you should buy them. And have a good day, and drink some coffee, and don't spill it everywhere, please. I'm learning to use my new device here.